Well, that was quite a game. Newcastle 1, Arsenal 2. Mark Donaldson, Beth Lindop, and Janusz Michallik to look over and pick the bones out of that. There was a long spell in that game, Janusz, after Newcastle took the lead. You wondered, are the chasing pack fighting back against the top two, with Liverpool, Beth, losing yesterday at Crystal Palace, and Newcastle on the verge of beating Arsenal? But Gabriel had other ideas. Quite the finish. You just wonder, Janusz, how significant come the end of the season that winning goal in stoppage time could be for the Gunners.
Super significant. I mean, our narrative throughout, Beth and I probably rewrote the script and how we're going to approach this, right? In the last minute. And you got to give, Arsenal credit, because, I mean, in a way, it was a must win. And that's a big ask for any team, right? Going to St. James's Park. But if we're going to be giving credit to Liverpool and how they always show character in winning late. Of course, I mean, they tied late last against Crystal Palace. They ultimately lost. Then we have to give Arsenal credit, because this was massive. And already 6 matches into the Premier League, we were just wondering if that gap is going to grow. Without Arsenal doing anything bad, really, because they've been dominant in just about every game I can think of. And they're certainly a contender. But, for the longest time, even a draw would probably raise some questions from us and from others. And certainly if they were to lose that game, which it looked that way, the bombs would be going off right now in this conversation. So tons and tons of credit to Arsenal for seeing this through, because they clearly deserved it. I mean, they were, a much better team than Newcastle.
5 points, Beth, separates 7 teams at the top of the table. You were at Selhurst Park yesterday for Liverpool. We'll speak more about that later, but Arsenal looked in trouble for long spells in that game. What does that tell us? Because it's not the first time it's happened that Arsenal find a way. What does it tell us about the resilience of this squad and their manager, Mikel Arteta?
Yeah, it's massive win for them, and they deserve enormous credit for the way they went about it, and Arteta as well. He's obviously had it levelled at him a lot, particularly since in the last week, since that Manchester City game, that he's too cautious at times. And he sort of went against that a little bit today, starting Eze, and Eze was brilliant in that first half. His influence sort of waned as the game went on, but later on, obviously, with them in need of a goal, he sort of threw on all of his attacking players. He sacrificed Martin Zubimendi for Martin Ødegaard. And that really paid dividends, because it allowed Declan Rice to get forward. And I think, if you could pin that win on any player, I think you have to give it to Declan Rice, because I think when he started getting forward, that was when Arsenal started to become really, really dangerous. So, yeah, I think it's huge for Arsenal. I think it says a lot about their resilience. It says a lot about their determination to make sure this season is different. It was a game where things they will feel went against them. And so to come away with the win, having been behind for so long in the game, it is really impressive. And now they've got to use that as motivation to kick on for the rest of the season.
Like most biographies, let's go through this chronologically, Janusz, and we'll start not with a goal, but an incident in the 16th minute. Gyökeres and Nick Pope. Should it have been a penalty for Arsenal, or did VAR do the right thing and suggest that, nope, it wasn't, and Newcastle did not get penalised?
2 things for me. Second question in the end, because as always in this situation, the more you see it, you change your mind. I tend not to, Mark, as you know me. I try to see it in real time, and if I'm wrong, I'll admit it. Here, for me, it's no penalty. I think Pope has the right to go for that ball, and there was a touch, and the ball changed directions. Now, people will say, well, how much of a touch, right? I mean, if it was much more of a touch, people probably wouldn't question that. The one question I have is, that certainly didn't look like clear and obvious, right? And this is where we always have this conversation, clear and obvious, because, you have to really look close to see if Pope got it. But for me, he's got the right to go for that ball. The fact that Gyökeres touched the ball first makes zero difference. I mean, ultimately, he got there. I think he was in control of his body, Nick Pope, that's for sure. So no, I didn't see this as a penalty.
Beth, this is what the tweet from the Premier League Match Centre said. Now, bearing in mind that it also said yesterday that it shouldn't be a red card because the player wasn't in control of the ball, which to me was absolute nonsense. After VAR review, the referee overturned the original decision of penalty to Arsenal. the referee's announcement. After review, the keeper plays the ball and there is no foul. The final decision is drop ball. Are you taking the same side as Janusz, or do you have a different view, Beth?
It was such a tough one because obviously in real time it looked like a Stonewall penalty, and then you see obviously Nick Pope does get a touch. I think it's probably one of those. If it goes against your team, you're probably feeling a little bit hard done by because the goalkeeper doesn't make that challenge whether he touches it or not. Gyökeres is in with a real good chance of scoring. So I can understand, why Arsenal fans, would feel aggrieved by that. But I also understand that the rationale that he does get a touch and you can see that quite clearly. So it's a tough one. Again, I think, that's a really good point about the clear and obvious thing, because it does seem like the bar is different week by week. And it's, people will say it's biased towards certain clubs. I absolutely don't think it is. I think sometimes there's just a level of inconsistency whereby, 1 week VAR won't intervene with something and then the next week it will intervene for something that it looks quite, it certainly isn't clear and obvious. So it's, I understand both sides of the argument, and ultimately I think it's probably good that it didn't end up defining the result, because I think we would have heard a lot about that this week if Arsenal had not gone on to win that game.
34th minute, and Nick Voltemade, who at Werder Bremen was okay, but he had a brilliant season at Stuttgart, as you know fine well, Janusz, last year. That got him a move to Newcastle. Now he scores a goal. Gabriel claims foul. What do you say about this one? Were the officials correct to allow this goal to stand?
Yeah. I mean, if the first one could be a controversy, zero controversy here.
There's none, is there? It's a goal.
Gabriel knew he was beaten to the ball by a man, and in the end, it was just kind of so weak. I've been in those situations where you're beaten so badly that you look for reasons, and that's exactly what happened. And trust me, I've been there on numerous occasions. It's just natural to kind of say, "Oh man, I'm at fault here," and then you're hoping that something's going to happen. So absolutely nothing there.
Good. No difference from you, Beth, just strength from one player and another player thinking, I need to try and get out of this by doing something.
Yeah, really poor from Gabriel, actually. Obviously, he makes himself the hero at the end, and we'll get onto that, and deserves enormous credit for that. But I do think his behaviour in the first half, when he was sort of chasing Voltemade around the pitch, and he sort of gives him a little... there's nothing wrong with a little back and forth sometimes, but it very much felt like he was just frustrated, and he goes and has a little swipe at him at one point. And, I think that sort of petulance was not befitting of a player of his caliber. And I think, the defending for the goal was poor, and was just probably trying to look for a way to get out of it.
Okay, Janusz, Beth touched on this earlier. A lot of changes from Arsenal in the second half. It was a bit Sean Connery, Arsenal in the second half. I don't know where that came from. William Saliba came on for Mosquera at half-time, so they had the first choice pairing. Then Marino and Martinelli in the 70th minute for Calafiori and Saka. It was a game that meandered along. Both sides had opportunities. Arsenal obviously had more of the ball. Then when the equaliser came, there were similarities from the opening goal when the cross came in from Tonali, I think it was, and it was headed in by Voltemade. And this time it was Marino with the finish after Declan Rice with the delivery. It's a brilliant ball in from Declan Rice. Good header, certainly. Should the defence be doing better?
Yeah, I mean, that's as good as it gets to redirect. That glancing header, it's special. I mean, you're hoping that something's going to come out of it. You have absolutely no idea, but a deft touch, and maybe from a player that's been I'm not underappreciated by everybody, and I'm not talking about Arsenal fans or but by neutrals, because he's been tremendous, right? Playing in every position from the starts or from the bench. He delivers so much. So look, I don't know. I mean, 2 set pieces, although I don't know the first one. Can we still talk about set piece? I mean, it was short and there were touches there, but it started as a set piece. Arsenal obviously conceded from one, but ultimately won it on it. So it's just a great goal that you're hoping that's going to get there. It looks absolutely beautiful, but to replicate that a couple of times probably never happens again.
So 1-1 with 6 minutes to go. In the 86th minute, there's a VAR check, Beth, for a penalty. Elanga's cross hits the arm, which is up, of Gabriel. However, the still doesn't do the whole move justice. The reason that VAR said that this should not be given as a penalty kick is because it deflects off his shin and onto his arm. And that is, there's no argument as a result of that. Once it comes off you, that's written. That's actually in the laws of the game. It's written down. There's no subjectivity here. If it doesn't come off his shin first and he's got his arm up and it's the other arm's holding him up, it's a penalty. But because it hits the shin first, you can't really have any complaints about this one. He was at the center of a lot of action and incidents in this game. Were you happy with that decision, Beth?
Yeah, I mean, as you say, to the letter of the law, it's no penalty. I think a lot of fans, certainly Newcastle fans, will be looking at that saying he's got his arm up in the middle of the box, and whether it comes off his shin or not, if that doesn't hit his arm, then that goes into the middle of the 18-yard box, and potentially someone's able to get a shot at goal. So I think it is, there's certainly a case that it should be a penalty, but it does contravene the rules. It's one of those that I think certainly because of the incident, the penalty incident in the first half, you can sort of look at it and say it balances it out. Both sides can probably feel a bit aggrieved that a decision surrounding a penalty didn't quite go their way.
Janusz?
No, right decision. The shin saves him. Otherwise, yeah, we could and should have a conversation about it. Look, the distance and all of that. But if the supporting arms, obviously, if it hits that, that's different. But is it natural as a defender when you slide like this, your arm's going to come up, but not this high, right? So if it wasn't for a shin, I could see this being called a penalty because that arm absolutely does not have to be as high as that. But ultimately, correct decision, and I wouldn't look for any controversy here.
I think there was 8 minutes added on, and in the 6th of those, Arsenal get themselves a corner, far side, and it's swung in by Odegaard. Keeper comes nowhere near it. Gabriel does what Gabriel does so well and scores the winning goal. Here's some stats for you both. 8 of Arsenal's 12 Premier League goals. That's incredible. 8 of 12. Right, that's 2/3 of their Premier League goals this season have been scored from dead ball situations, including penalties. And Gabriel has now scored 6 goals from corners in the last 3 Premier League seasons. That's the most in the competition in that span. They've got a set-piece coach. You try and do your best to stop them, Beth, but just too good, ultimately. Defending could have been better, but Gabriel's such a weapon in there.
Yeah, and listen, people ridicule Arsenal and criticise Arsenal sometimes for that reliance on set pieces. And, when you look at the players that they've got, you think perhaps they probably should be scoring more goals from open play. But ultimately, any team needs to maximise the strengths, and the margins in the Premier League are so fine. And when you think about how many set pieces Arsenal generate, then it makes sense to be good at them. And you can't argue that it's not working for them. It absolutely is. So, credit to them. I'd like to see a bit less of the set piece coach. It feels like he's popping up in the technical area more than Michallik sometimes, but credit to him. He's obviously done a good job there. And again, it is a potent weapon. It's made a real difference for them today. And that is, this is a result that now could completely mark a turning point in their season and propel them. By the time Liverpool kick off at Chelsea next week, Arsenal, providing they win their next game, will be ahead of Liverpool. So this win was absolutely massive, and you can't deny that set pieces have played a massive part in helping them to get there.
Janusz, we know what they're going to do. They're capable of doing this. They've done it so often. I just gave you the stats. 8 of 12 goals this season from set plays. But with something like this, when you know what's coming, what more can a defence do? Even if it's the dark arts bordering on illegality, but just above the line of what's right and what's wrong. How can Newcastle and other teams defend set plays better against Arsenal?
Well, I mean, it's hard. There's no recipe for me to give you. It's usually 1 against 1. I don't care. Some teams play man-to-man. Some teams play man-to-man in zone. Some just play zone. But ultimately, somebody has to win an individual battle, right? And this is an art. I think people are crazy. Those that are, criticizing Arsenal. I mean, everybody's doing. I mean, look at throw-ins are dangerous now, as Liverpool found out, and Coyote can do it, and everybody else is trying to do it. It's a one moment in time where you actually you can think the ball is stopped. You can get yourself organized, and you have to do it. And if look, we can have an argument: should Arsenal be scoring more goals from the run of play? Yes. Today, when I look at the chances as a Nick Pope great save, right? Trossard hits the post. Then Timber stopped by Pope again. But in this one, Pope went on fishing. And why did that happen, by the way? Those little details and why Arsenal are scoring. Is it just a coincidence? No, it isn't. Just take a look at Saliba and the way he played Pope. It's nearly picture perfect. I mean, Pope can't go anywhere. It's not a foul. He's not holding him. He's just kind of shadowing, standing in front. And Pope wanted to get there. But ultimately, if you look at it again, Pope ends up looking better. And Saliba, for me, gets just as much credit on this one than Gabriel just for scoring. So, all the power to Arsenal and any team that spends extra time in terms of scoring. It's part of the game. And Arsenal just do it better than anybody else.
Yeah, well said. Totally agree with that. And that's not just as a fan of a team that also has a set piece coach. It's part of the game. And if you're trying to get any sort of advantage over another side, take it. Why not? That's the main thing. Beth, where does it leave Newcastle? Because they've only won one of their 6 this season. Granted, their opening games have been tough, but up until they conceded the equalizer, they look good for long spells. What should be their kind of target for this season, given what they've got and who they've added?
Well, I think Europe. I think pushing for Europe, whether it's the Champions League or whether it is slightly further down in one of the second, third tier competitions. I think that's equally important, because I think if they were to get into the Europa League or the Conference League, certainly they'd have an extremely good chance of winning one of those competitions. They've got some really good players. They've had obviously a difficult summer in some ways. There's been a lot of change, but I think they can take encouragement. They obviously coming into today had the best defensive record in the league. I think Nick Pope deserves enormous credit for, certainly in that first half today, for keeping them in the game at times. But I think that the winning goal was very much on him, not even just for obviously not being able to get to the ball when Gabriel heads it, but actually the reason Arsenal get a corner is because Nick Pope claims the ball, and rather than sort of taking the sting out of the game and just trying to waste a little bit of time, he sort of throws it straight out. It goes to Martinelli, and that ends up resulting in a corner. So I think it's very fine margins for Newcastle so far. They came within seconds of getting a result against Liverpool. They came within minutes of getting a result against Arsenal. So as much as the table might not make the best reading at the moment, I think there are promising signs. I think Eddie Howe's a very good coach. Baltamada now is at 2 goals in the Premier League. He scored against Wolves, obviously, the other week. So I think as he continues to sort of adjust to the league and other players start to find their feet, I thought Michallik looked really good at the back for them today. So I think it will be a period of adaptation, but I wouldn't be too concerned about them at the moment.
Janusz's concentration an issue, because Beth just mentioned that goal that young Rio scored for Liverpool in the 10th minute of added time. That's a goal conceded in the 6th minute of added time, or is it just coincidence, one of those things?
Yeah, look, I mean, I'm going to go broader a little bit in terms of concentration. It's been hard for Newcastle, right? I mean, a preseason to forget. I mean, I can only imagine. I mean, what we've seen with what happened with Isak and all that. Imagine how that affects the dressing room. I'm with Beth on this one. Look, I mean, it's a stingy team, right? I mean, they've before this game they've conceded 3, but they've only scored 3, and Isak leaving, it's not an easy one to replace. Voltemata is, I think all of us have watched him plenty at Stuttgart, and you can tell that he's still. He needs to learn how to keep up with the pace, because it's so much different. He's a big man with very soft feet. I mean, he's been used to playing in the Bundesliga, and you think of him automatically, he scores, he's good in the air, 2 set pieces, 2 great headers, right, already. But he's very good in the build-up, and he likes to get involved in the build-up. And I think we saw a little bit of that. I remember a couple of times where he was trying, but you could sense it that, he probably senses it that he doesn't have a lot, enough time for that in this league. He'll learn that, and I think he's going to be fine. Let's not forget, Wisha is not there. Defensively, they haven't had Fabian Schär. Today, looks like they lost Livramento. I hope not for long, but they're going to be fine. And once again, once everything settles, this is a team that has plenty of firepower to fight for top 4 once again. We'll see how they juggle Europe and Premier League, because as we know, last time around, this wasn't all that great. That was part of the problem. But I think once they find the rhythm, they'll get their wins in St. James's, and they'll always be dangerous. So no panic for me as well.
I want to stick with you, Janusz. I'm not quite sure if you will ever be the president of the Viktor Gyökeres fan club. What did you make of him today, his involvement and the service that he got?
Well, I mean, look. I mean, he's got what, 3 goals in 5-6 games? Ain't bad. I mean, we tend to look at the price, where he came from, and how many goals he scored for Sporting. I think anybody in their right mind would have known that the feats and the goals that he's had, in Portugal, he's not going to do that in Premier League right away, if ever, right? I think he's been brought in here for these type of games. And I thought he fought extremely, extremely hard today in terms of his physical battles. And that's sometimes very, very, very important because it opens up things for others. As I said, this game, last moment win, ultimately his movement was good, didn't create too many chances for himself. But, I can look at this game and look at the first half and some of the chances that Arsenal had and say to myself, between Eze, Trossard, and some of the other chances that I've mentioned, Arsenal could have easily been out of sight early, and who knows, maybe the game would have opened up. Difficult at St. James's against a physical Newcastle team. So far, I give him a passing grade because 3 in 6. Am I right in that? I think he's got 3. I think he had 3 goals in 5 Premier League games. That's not bad.